A lost continent might be hiding beneath the waves of the Indian Ocean. This is the legend of Lemuria, a vast landmass said to have vanished beneath the sea, taking an ancient civilization with it. Was it a real geological formation, or is it one of history's most captivating fictions? By the end of our journey, you will understand the true origins of this incredible story and why it continues to haunt our imagination. We will follow the trail from a Victorian scientist's serious puzzle to secret occult texts and powerful cultural legends. What evidence, if any, supports the existence of this sunken world? Do you believe a forgotten land could be waiting to be discovered? The true story of Lemuria begins not with an ancient prophecy, but with a scientific paper published in 1864. A respected British zoologist named Philip Sclater was wrestling with a peculiar puzzle of nature. He had mapped the distribution of a specific group of primates, the lemurs, and found a pattern that made little sense. Their fossils were plentiful in Madagascar and India, yet they were strangely absent from the vast continents of Africa and the Middle East that lay between them. For a scientist of that era, this was a genuine head-scratcher. How could the same animal be found in two distant lands with no trace in the connecting regions? The prevailing theory of the time could not easily explain this oddity. Sclater proposed a bold, elegant solution. He suggested that a massive land bridge had once connected India and Madagascar, a continent that had since sunk beneath the waves of the Indian Ocean. This sunken land would have provided a pathway for the lemurs to migrate, solving the biogeographical mystery. He gave this hypothetical continent a name derived from the very creatures that pointed to its existence, Lemuria. This was not a flight of fancy. It was a serious, albeit flawed, scientific hypothesis born from the available evidence. In the world of 19th century science, before the understanding of plate tectonics, the idea of vanishing continents was a legitimate, if desperate, answer to nature's most baffling riddles. Sclater's idea did not emerge from a vacuum. It was a product of its time, a perfectly rational answer within the scientific framework of the 19th century. Back then, the Earth was seen as a largely static globe. The continents and oceans were considered permanent fixtures. The revolutionary theory of plate tectonics, which explains how continents slowly drift across the planet's surface, was still a century away from acceptance. So when scientists were confronted with identical fossils on opposite sides of an ocean, they needed a different explanation. Their most logical solution was the land bridge. Imagine the world not with fixed continents, but crisscrossed with ancient highways of land that have since collapsed into the sea. These sunken land bridges were the go-to answer for biogeographical puzzles. They explained why similar species could be found in South America and Africa, or why ancient reptiles seem to have crossed what is now deep water. A lost continent like Lemuria was not a wild fantasy. It was a legitimate scientific hypothesis. It was the equivalent of a missing piece in a grand puzzle, a landmass that neatly connected the dots between India and Madagascar for the migrating lemurs. For a Victorian scientist, this was an elegant and plausible solution. It turned a baffling mystery into a solvable equation. The concept was so mainstream that it even appeared in serious scientific textbooks and maps. Lemuria was, for a brief period, a real place on the scientific radar, a ghost continent born from the best knowledge of the age. But what happens when a scientific idea escapes the laboratory and falls into the hands of those who see not just land bridges, but bridges to a forgotten world of ancient magic? Yet the story of Lemuria was about to take a bizarre and lasting detour. The scientific hypothesis did not remain confined to academic journals for long. It was soon seized upon by a woman who would radically reshape its destiny, Helena Petrovna Blavatsky. A charismatic and controversial figure, Blavatsky founded the Theosophical Society, a spiritual movement that sought to uncover the hidden wisdom underlying all world religions. In her monumental 1888 book, The Secret Doctrine, she presented a grand cosmic history of humanity. And in this new narrative, Lemuria was given a starring role, but one that bore little resemblance to Sclater's land bridge. Blavatsky transformed the Lost Continent into the home of the third root race, a bizarre and ancient stage of human evolution. Her Lemurians were not simple primates. They were described as giant, 15-foot-tall beings. They were said to be egg-laying hermaphrodites, and they possessed a powerful third eye in the back of their head, which gave them psychic abilities and a connection to the spiritual world. This was not science, it was a full-blown mythological creation. Blavatsky wove together elements of Eastern religion, spiritualism, and outright invention, using the scientific name of Lemuria to lend her esoteric system an air of credibility. This dramatic reinterpretation is what truly launched Lemuria into the popular imagination. The dry, geological speculation was now infused with mystery, magic, and a lost golden age. It was this version, filled with psychic giants and ancient secrets, that captured the hearts and minds of occultists and writers. The continent had been successfully stolen from the scientists and reborn as a cornerstone of alternative history. How could a simple land bridge possibly compete with a race of telepathic giants? This new, more sensational Lemuria was destined to eclipse its humble origins, creating a legend that would endure for over a century. Blavatsky's vision for Lemuria was nothing short of colossal. This was not a mere landmass, but a sprawling continent said to have covered a vast portion of the Indian and Pacific Oceans, stretching from the Himalayas to the coast of California. Its society, according to Theosophical doctrine, was as strange as it was ancient. The Lemurians themselves were the third in a line of root races, evolving from ethereal, jelly-like forms into the giant, egg-laying beings with a powerful third eye. This eye was not for physical sight, but for spiritual perception, granting them a direct, intuitive connection to the cosmos and its hidden laws. Their civilization was one of immense spiritual power, but also one of strange biological realities, a society that existed in a dreamlike state long before the rise of human intellect as we know it. They communicated through telepathy and built their world not with machinery, but through the sheer force of will and spiritual energy. Imagine a civilization that could shape stone and command nature not with tools but with thought. This was the grand, mystical stage that Blavatsky set. Later Theosophical writers took this foundation and built an even more elaborate structure, a man named W. Scott Elliot became particularly influential, publishing works that added layers of tantalizing detail. He provided intricate maps charting Lemuria's supposed coastlines and mountain ranges. He described its climate, its flora and fauna, and the daily lives of its inhabitants in astonishing depth. Scott Elliot wove Lemuria into a broader cosmic timeline, connecting it directly to the legend of Atlantis. In this expanded narrative, the Lemurians were the predecessors to the Atlanteans. Their downfall was not a single event, but a slow, tragic decay. As they began to develop a more physical form and their spiritual connection waned, their society fell into discord. Their continent was ravaged by massive volcanic eruptions and earthquakes, a divine punishment for their spiritual decline, until the great land was finally consumed by the sea in a series of catastrophic events. This elaborate tapestry of lost worlds and fallen races created a complete, alternative history of humanity. It was a story that offered answers to profound questions about our origins, suggesting a past far more mysterious and spiritually significant than conventional history allowed. The vision of a psychic, ancient race that lost its way provided a powerful metaphor for humanity's own potential and its perils. This rich narrative, blending science fiction with spiritual yearning, is the direct ancestor of many New Age beliefs we see today. The idea of Lemuria as a sunken paradise, a place of advanced psychic abilities and lost wisdom, continues to resonate with those searching for a deeper, hidden truth about our world. But what happens when such a powerful myth collides with the cold, hard evidence of modern geology? Far from the psychic giants of Theosophy, Lemuria found another powerful identity in the ancient soil of India. Here, the Lost Continent is not called Lemuria at all, but Kumari Kandam. In Tamil folklore, this was no speculative land bridge, but the very cradle of Tamil civilization, a vast and glorious continent that once stretched south from the Indian mainland. Legends speak of a fertile landmass connecting present-day Tamil Nadu to a world now submerged beneath the Indian Ocean. This was not a home for mythical beings, but for the ancestors of the Tamil people, a sophisticated society with a rich culture and a deep history. The story of Kumari Kandam is intrinsically woven with the concept of the Sangams. These were legendary academies or gatherings of poets and scholars, said to have fostered Tamil literature and language for thousands of years. The first two Sangams were believed to have been located in Kumari Kandam itself. The lore tells of a catastrophic deluge, a series of devastating floods that slowly consumed the great continent. As the waters rose, the people were forced to flee northward, carrying their knowledge and traditions with them. The first two Sangams, along with their vast libraries of ancient texts, were lost forever to the sea. Only the third Sangam, established in the city of Madurai after the floods, survived in historical memory. This narrative is far more than a simple legend. It carries immense cultural and political weight. In the 20th century, the story of Kumari Kandam became powerfully intertwined with Tamil nationalism. It provided a powerful origin myth, a testament to the antiquity and independence of Tamil culture. The idea of a lost, advanced civilization predating the influence of northern Indian cultures became a potent symbol of Tamil pride. It suggested that Tamil was one of the world's oldest classical languages, born from a continent that had vanished, giving its literature an almost mystical depth. The loss of Kumari Kandam is often framed not just as a geological tragedy, but as a cultural one, a theft of heritage by the ocean. This belief transforms the Indian Ocean from a body of water into a vast underwater museum of lost greatness. For those who hold this view, every wave whispers of a time when Tamil kings ruled a sprawling continent, and its poets composed works of unimaginable beauty in academies now buried beneath the seabed. It is a story of resilience, of a culture surviving catastrophic loss, but it is also a story that yearns for a physical proof that may never be found. The legend paints a breathtaking picture of Kumari Kandam's geography. It was said to span a colossal territory, stretching from the present-day southern tip of India all the way to Madagascar, a lost world of 49 separate provinces. Ancient Tamil texts like the Silapatikaram speak of the Pahulai River and the Kumari River, landscapes that are now believed to lie deep under the ocean's surface. This was not an empty wilderness. The stories describe magnificent cities, bustling ports, and immense libraries of palm leaf manuscripts that held the collective wisdom of its people. The continent was the heart of a sophisticated civilization, a golden age of Tamil culture that flourished in a land now erased from the map. Its destruction came not with a single cataclysm, but through a relentless series of great floods. The Katatkal, or the swallowing by the sea, is a central theme. The ocean is said to have risen again and again, swallowing entire kingdoms and forcing a mass migration northward. This narrative of a world lost to water is not unique. It echoes powerfully across human history, from the biblical story of Noah's Ark to the Mesopotamian epic of Gilgamesh and the flood myths of indigenous cultures worldwide. These shared stories of a great deluge seem to be etched into our collective memory, a universal theme of divine judgment, survival, and a profound sense of a world that once was. For the Tamil people, Kumari Kandam is their specific, deeply personal chapter in this global saga. This myth of origin and catastrophic loss has found a permanent home in modern Tamil identity. It is a story continually retold and reimagined, breathing life into literature, poetry, and especially cinema. blockbuster Tamil films have depicted the Lost Continent with stunning visual effects, showing its majestic cities and tragic submergence, bringing the legend to millions. But its influence extends far beyond entertainment. In political discourse, Kumari Kandam has been invoked as a symbol of Tamil nationalism and cultural pride. It serves as powerful evidence for the claim that Tamil civilization is one of the oldest on Earth, predating and existing independently of other Indian cultures. The continent's destruction becomes a metaphor for historical injustices, a stolen heritage that fuels a desire for cultural recognition and political autonomy. A scientific puzzle about lemur migration was thus transformed into the very soul of a people's historical narrative. How does a modern world, armed with satellites and deep-sea submersibles, confront such a powerful and enduring legend? Can science ever hope to either confirm or finally lay to rest a story that has become so much more than just a story? The solid ground beneath our feet is not so solid after all. While legends of sunken continents captivated the public, a quiet revolution was unfolding within the halls of science, one that would fundamentally rewrite our understanding of the planet. By the 1960s, a radical new theory had gathered overwhelming evidence and finally shattered the old, static view of Earth. This was the theory of plate tectonics. It revealed that the Earth's crust is not a single, unbroken shell, but a mosaic of gigantic, slow-moving plates floating on a layer of molten rock. These plates are in constant, imperceptible motion, drifting apart, colliding, or sliding past one another at a speed roughly equal to the growth of your fingernails. This simple yet profound idea explained the world in a way land bridges never could. At the gaps between plates, magma wells up from below, creating new seafloor and pushing continents apart in a process called seafloor spreading. And where plates collide, one can be forced under another in a dramatic descent known as subduction, swallowing ancient ocean floor back into the planet's fiery interior and pushing up mountain ranges like the Himalayas. This single, elegant framework suddenly made sense of everything. It explained why the coastlines of South America and Africa fit together like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. It revealed why earthquakes and volcanoes are concentrated along specific, predictable lines that trace the edges of these massive plates. And most critically for our story, it provided the definitive answer to Philip Sclater's lemur puzzle. Madagascar and India were not separated by a sunken land bridge. They were once joined together as part of a single, massive supercontinent, Gondwana. Around 160 million years ago, the slow, relentless conveyor belt of plate tectonics began to pull this ancient landmass apart. India broke free and drifted northward on its own colossal journey, eventually crashing into Asia to form the Himalayas. Madagascar remained behind, an isolated island arc. The lemurs were simply passengers on these drifting continental rafts, their fossils left behind as permanent records of a geological divorce that took millions of years. The Lost Continent of Lemuria was not just unnecessary, it was geologically impossible. The evidence was now in the rocks themselves, and it pointed to a story of moving land, not vanishing oceans. So the mystery of the lemurs was not a mystery at all. It was a story written in stone, waiting for us to learn how to read it. The journey of India and Madagascar is a breathtaking geological saga. Long ago, they were not separate lands but neighboring regions within the colossal supercontinent of Gondwana. Picture a single, massive jigsaw puzzle that included not just India and Madagascar, but also Africa, South America, Australia, and Antarctica, all fitted together into one immense landmass. Then, incredibly, this puzzle began to slowly break apart. Around 160 million years ago, massive forces deep within the Earth started to pull Gondwana to pieces. Think of a layer of warm wax slowly cracking and separating. A new seaway began to form, a rift that widened over millions of years, forcing India and Madagascar to begin their long, slow divorce. India, acting like a colossal tectonic raft, broke free entirely and started its remarkable northward voyage across the ancient Tethys Ocean. Madagascar, meanwhile, remained anchored near the African coast, a solitary fragment of that original puzzle. The lemurs were simply living on a piece of that puzzle. They did not need a land bridge to explain their presence on both sides of the ocean because for them there was no ocean. When the land split, populations of these animals were simply stranded on the newly separated continents. They continued to evolve in isolation on Madagascar, becoming the unique array of species we find there today, while their relatives left behind on the drifting Indian subcontinent eventually went extinct, leaving only their fossils behind as a permanent record of their ancient home. The evidence for this is overwhelming and etched into the very bedrock of our planet. Sophisticated mapping of the seafloor reveals the scars of this ancient separation. The matching geological formations and identical fossil records on the coasts of India and Madagascar are like two torn pieces of a page, their edges and text lining up perfectly. Plate tectonics did not just offer an alternative to the Lemuria hypothesis, it completely replaced it with a story that is far more grand, dynamic, and scientifically sound. The lost continent was not swallowed by the sea, it was simply carried away piece by piece on the slow, unstoppable currents of the Earth's own restless crust. Yet the ocean floor still held one final, stunning surprise. Just when the story of Lemuria seemed entirely closed, a remarkable geological discovery emerged from the depths of the Indian Ocean. Scientists analyzing sand from the beaches of the island of Mauritius found something that should not have been there: tiny crystals of the mineral zircon. These zircons were dated to be nearly 2 billion years old, a number that is shockingly ancient. The volcanic rock that forms the island of Mauritius itself is only about 9 million years old. It is as if you were digging in a brand new building lot and unearthed a relic from the Roman Empire. The only possible explanation was that these ancient zircons were fragments from a much older, sunken landmass lying beneath the young volcanic island. The researchers named this lost piece of Earth's crust Mauritia, a microcontinent that was once part of the ancient supercontinent of Gondwana. As India and Madagascar tore apart millions of years ago, this fragment of continental crust, a sliver of real estate perhaps a quarter the size of Madagascar, was stretched, thinned, and eventually drowned beneath the rising waves. It was not a sudden, catastrophic sinking, but a slow, geological demise over millions of years. For those who cherish the legend, this discovery felt like a vindication. Headlines buzzed with the news of a real sunken continent found in the exact region where Lemuria was proposed, but the scientific reality is far more sobering than the myth. Mauritia is a geological ghost, a sunken piece of real estate, not a lost civilization. It was never a vast, populated paradise connecting India to Africa. It was a fragment, a sliver of drowned granite, its existence perfectly explained by the same plate tectonic forces that solved the original lemur puzzle. This microcontinent is a fascinating piece of our planet's deep history, a real sunken land, but it is a world apart from the legendary Lemuria of giants, psychics, and golden ages. The true story of our planet's restless surface is wondrous enough. The discovery of Mauritia presents us with a fascinating paradox. On one hand, science has indeed confirmed that a piece of a continent lies submerged in the Indian Ocean. On the other, this reality bears almost no resemblance to the Lemuria of legend. The difference between the two is the difference between a single grain of sand and an entire beach. Mauritia was a microcontinent, a sliver of ancient crust perhaps a few hundred kilometers across. The legendary Lemuria, by contrast, is described as a vast landmass spanning oceans larger than entire modern continents. The scale alone separates geological fact from imaginative fiction. Their timelines are equally worlds apart. Mauritia's story is one of almost unimaginable slowness. Its submersion was not a sudden cataclysm but a gradual, drawn-out process over tens of millions of years, a victim of the relentless, creeping forces of plate tectonics. The continent stretched, thinned, and slowly sank beneath the waves as the ocean basin widened. This is how real continents fragment and disappear, not in a day but across geological epochs. The legend of Lemuria, however, demands a swift and dramatic end, a single, civilization-ending catastrophe that erased a world in its prime. This is a story written for human timescales, not for the patient billion-year clock of the Earth. And what of the inhabitants? Mauritia was a geological entity, a piece of real estate. There is no evidence nor any reason to believe it was ever home to anything more than prehistoric flora and fauna, let alone a race of psychic giants or a sophisticated human civilization. Its formation and destruction were governed by the impersonal laws of physics and chemistry, not by spiritual decline or divine judgment. So, does the discovery of Mauritia validate the myth of Lemuria? It does the exact opposite. It provides a clear, scientific explanation for why such legends might arise, while simultaneously demonstrating that the reality is far less sensational. It proves that land can sink, but it does so in a way that completely contradicts the core elements of the story. The true wonder lies not in a fictional lost world, but in the genuine, dynamic processes that continually reshape our planet. We are left with a simple, powerful distinction. Mauritia is exciting science, a tangible piece of Earth's deep history revealed. Lemuria is an unsubstantiated myth, a powerful cultural and spiritual narrative born from a scientific misunderstanding and amplified by human imagination. One is a chapter from a geology textbook, the other, a timeless story from the human heart. But the legend of Lemuria was not content to remain in the Indian Ocean. It found a new home and a new name in the vast expanse of the Pacific. In the early 20th century, a British writer named James Churchward introduced the world to the Lost Continent of Mu. He claimed to have uncovered its history not through geology, but through a series of ancient, secret clay tablets. Churchward said he learned to translate them during his time in India, with the help of a high-ranking priest who shared forbidden knowledge. According to his translations, Mu was not a simple land bridge but a massive, idyllic continent in the Pacific Ocean, the original cradle of all humankind. This paradise was home to an advanced civilization of 64 million people, a society that possessed technology and wisdom far beyond our own. He described a land of towering temples and sprawling cities, a utopia that met a sudden, violent end. Churchward dated this catastrophe to precisely 12,000 years ago, when a series of massive underground gas chambers supposedly exploded, tearing the entire continent apart and sending it to the bottom of the sea in a single, terrifying day. His books became international bestsellers, filled with intricate maps and vivid descriptions of Mu's government, its science, and its daily life. This was a complete, self-contained history of a world that never was. Yet Churchward's story stands in stark contrast to the original idea of Lemuria. Philip Sclater's hypothesis, while ultimately incorrect, was a genuine attempt to solve a scientific puzzle using the best available evidence of his time. Churchward's Mu, however, was built on a foundation of pure imagination. He never produced the mysterious tablets for experts to examine. His translations were accepted by no reputable linguists or historians. His entire narrative was a work of creative fiction dressed up as revealed truth. While Sclater was a scientist who got it wrong, Churchward was a storyteller who presented a magnificent, evidence-free fantasy as fact. His version of a lost continent tapped into a deep public desire for hidden histories and forgotten golden ages, proving that a compelling story, even without a shred of proof, could captivate the world. James Churchward's story of Mu was built on a foundation of invisible evidence. He claimed his entire narrative came from a set of ancient clay tablets, the Knockal tablets, which he said he discovered and translated with the help of a temple priest in India. Yet in all his writings, he never produced a single tablet, nor a photograph, nor even a reliable drawing for experts to examine. Not one credible museum, university, or archaeologist has ever been able to verify that these knuckle tablets existed at all. They exist only in Churchward's telling, a convenient source that could not be questioned because it could not be seen. This is the hallmark of pseudoarchaeology, where the most crucial evidence remains forever just out of reach, known only to the author. Even if we take his word about the tablets, his translations fall apart under the slightest scrutiny. He filled his books with descriptions of much advanced technology, its government, and its 64 million inhabitants, details that he supposedly extracted from these ancient texts. Yet scholars who analyzed his work immediately spotted glaring anachronisms and errors. He described civilizations and languages in ways that contradict everything we know from verified history and archaeology. His timeline was a fantasy, his geography impossible. Churchward did not uncover a lost history, he constructed one. He started with a sensational conclusion, a paradise lost, and then worked backward, inventing the evidence to support it. This is the opposite of true scientific inquiry, where conclusions are drawn from verifiable facts. Why would someone go to such lengths? The answer lies in the powerful appeal of the story itself. A Pacific paradise, a master race, a catastrophic end. These are the ingredients of a myth that resonates deeply with a desire for a grander, more mysterious past. Churchward's Mu is a perfect case study in how a compelling narrative, even one built on nothing but air, can capture the global imagination and endure for decades, completely insulated from the inconvenient demands of proof. The Lost Continent of Lemuria refused to stay buried in academic journals or occult texts. It found its true immortality in the vibrant, sprawling world of modern pop culture. Here, the legend was stripped of its scientific debates and reborn as pure, unadulterated adventure. One of its most prominent homes became the pages of Marvel Comics. In the 1970s, Marvel writers transformed Lemuria into a hidden, underwater kingdom, a direct rival to the more famous Atlantis. This Lemuria was populated by a race of cold-blooded, reptilian humanoids known as the Lemurians. Led by villains like the undying Lyra and the warlord Naga, these serpent folk constantly schemed to conquer the surface world, clashing with heroes like Prince Nama the Submariner. This depiction borrowed the idea of an ancient, advanced society, but replaced the psychic giants of Theosophy with a more traditional comic book menace, a society of monsters lurking just beneath the waves. The mythos took a darker turn in the world of role-playing games. In the cosmic horror of Call of Cthulhu, Lemuria is not merely a sunken land, but a place of unspeakable pre-human dread. It is described as the birthplace of the serpent people, an ancient, degenerate race that practiced dark sorcery and worshipped alien gods long before humanity walked the earth. This version taps directly into the fear of the unknown that underpins H.P. Lovecraft's universe. Exploring the ruins of Lemuria in such a game is not a search for golden idols, but a terrifying descent into madness, where players might uncover blasphemous texts or awaken something that should have remained forgotten. The continent becomes a stage for horror, a testament to how flexible the core idea of a lost world can be. Even in family-friendly animation, Lemuria's influence is unmistakable. The beloved series Avatar: The Last Airbender features the Sun Warriors, an ancient civilization believed to be extinct, who were the original firebenders and the first to learn from the dragons. While not named Lemuria, the archetype is identical, an advanced, isolationist society from a forgotten age that holds the key to a primordial power. This depiction captures the romantic, spiritual core of the legend, a hidden people preserving a purer, more profound connection to the world's magic. These fictional versions all follow a similar recipe. They take the foundational concept of a vanished, advanced civilization, blend in elements from Blavatsky's mystical giants and Churchward's utopian paradise, and then reshape it to fit their own narrative needs. The result is a constant, low-level hum of awareness in the public mind. For every child who read a Marvel comic, or every giver who explored a haunted ruin, or every viewer who marveled at the Sun Warriors, the name Lemuria gained a little more weight. It became a shorthand for mystery, for ancient secrets, and for worlds that might still be waiting to be found. The myth persists not because of geology, but because it is simply too good a story to ever let go. We are drawn to these vanished worlds for reasons far deeper than simple curiosity. The legend of Lemuria, much like the stories of Atlantis or the Golden City of El Dorado, taps into a fundamental part of the human psyche, a yearning for a time and place that feels grander and more profound than our own. This is a form of collective nostalgia, not for a past we have lived, but for a past we wish had existed. It is the dream of a golden age, a time of pure wisdom and harmony, free from the complexities and compromises of modern life. A sunken continent represents the ultimate hidden mystery, a blank space on the map that we can fill with our greatest hopes and our most primal fears. It whispers that history is not yet fully written, that incredible discoveries still await just beyond the horizon, or more tantalizingly, just beneath the waves. This is a powerful antidote to a world that often feels fully explored and meticulously documented. The unknown is inherently thrilling. It invites us to become explorers from our own armchairs, to ponder the possibility that everything we think we know might be incomplete. These myths are not failures of logic, but triumphs of imagination. They answer a deep-seated need for wonder, offering a sense of scale and mystery that our everyday lives often lack. Whether it is the advanced technology of Atlantis, the untold riches of El Dorado, or the spiritual giants of Lemuria, each lost world provides a different flavor of escape. They allow us to believe that our world holds secrets too magnificent to be contained by mere history books, and that the greatest stories may still be lying in wait, hidden in plain sight at the bottom of the sea. This search for physical proof often leads to dramatic claims about mysterious structures discovered underwater. Off the coast of Japan's Yonaguni Island lies a sprawling, stepped formation that some have passionately declared to be the ruins of a Lemurian city. With its sharp, angular edges and what appear to be terraces and staircases, the Yonaguni Monument looks to the untrained eye remarkably like a sunken pyramid or temple complex. It is a breathtaking sight, one that seems to cry out with the promise of a lost world. Geologists, however, see a very different story. They identify the formation as a perfect example of natural sandstone weathering. The same forces that create dramatic cliffs and mesas on land are fully capable of producing these seemingly artificial shapes underwater. The rock in this region has natural horizontal bedding planes and vertical fractures, and over thousands of years, the powerful ocean currents have simply eroded along these lines, carving out the massive block-like structures. There are no tool marks, no pottery shards, no evidence of human habitation whatsoever found at the site. It is a masterpiece of natural sculpture, mistaken for human handiwork. This is a classic case of a psychological phenomenon called pareidolia, where our brains are wired to see familiar patterns, like faces in clouds or buildings in rocks, even where none exist. The desire to find confirmation for a beloved myth can be so strong that it reshapes what we see, turning a beautiful geological feature into the shattered cornerstone of a sunken civilization. Other supposed proofs are even less substantial, often relying on fraudulent artifacts or wildly imaginative interpretations. Over the years, various individuals have come forward with carved stones or tablets they claim are Lemurian relics, objects covered in untranslatable symbols that supposedly tell the continent's history. Yet these items never survive basic scrutiny. They appear from nowhere with no documented excavation site or archaeological context. They are typically examined by a single, self-proclaimed expert rather than being subjected to the rigorous process of peer review, where multiple independent specialists can analyze the materials, the carving techniques, and the patina to determine their true age and origin. Almost invariably, these artifacts are revealed to be modern creations, sometimes as part of an elaborate hoax, other times as the sincere but misguided work of someone convinced they are channeling ancient knowledge. The methods used to debunk these claims are the bedrock of the scientific process. Researchers demand verifiable evidence that can be tested and replicated. They apply the principle of Occam's razor, which suggests that the simplest explanation, the one requiring the fewest unsupported assumptions, is usually the correct one. Is it more likely that a complex, advanced civilization left behind only one ambiguous artifact in the hands of a single person, or that the artifact is a modern fabrication? The answer from a scientific standpoint is almost always the latter. This relentless demand for proof is not meant to stifle wonder, but to protect the integrity of genuine discovery. It ensures that the real, awe-inspiring history of our planet is not drowned out by the seductive whisper of a fantasy. The debate over the Yonaguni Monument hinges on a single, powerful question. Are we looking at the ruins of a forgotten city or a masterpiece of natural sculpture? On one side are the explorers and alternative historians. They point to the structure's uncanny features, its sharp 90-degree angles, its seemingly perfect terraces, and its twin monoliths that look like a giant's gateway. They argue this is not random weathering. The flat platforms and what appear to be carved steps suggest a grand, terraced plaza, perhaps the centerpiece of a sunken civilization, a real-world Mu or Lemuria. The sheer scale and apparent order feel intentional, as if human hands or something else shaped the stone for a purpose we can no longer comprehend. It is a vision of a lost world preserved in silent stone beneath the waves, yet geologists offer a very different and equally compelling explanation. They see in Yonaguni a classic example of sandstone bedrock doing what it naturally does. The rock in this region is crisscrossed with natural horizontal layers and vertical fractures, like the grain in a piece of wood. Over thousands of years, the powerful ocean currents have acted like a master sculptor, relentlessly eroding the softer stone along these pre-existing lines. This process, known as sheet jointing and weathering, can produce astonishingly geometric shapes completely without human help. The so-called staircases are simply weaker layers of rock that have worn away faster, creating stepped patterns. The monolithic pillars are blocks that have fractured and fallen into place. When you place a photograph of the Yonaguni Monument next to a formation like the Giant's Causeway in Ireland or any number of dramatic sandstone cliffs in deserts, the resemblance is striking. Nature is a brilliant architect capable of creating its own pyramids, palaces, and stairways to nowhere. The true wonder may not be that an ancient civilization built it, but that our planet is capable of building such things all on its own. So where does that leave us, caught between the desire for discovery and the weight of geological evidence? This very pattern defines the entire field of alternative archaeology. Its approach fundamentally reverses the scientific process. Instead of following evidence to a conclusion, it begins with a captivating conclusion, often rooted in myth or a desire for a more wondrous past, and then selectively gathers or interprets evidence to support it. Anything that does not fit this predetermined narrative, like the overwhelming geological consensus on plate tectonics, is dismissed as a cover-up or the rigid thinking of the academic establishment. This method creates a closed loop immune to genuine falsification. If you are already convinced that Lemuria was real, then a strangely shaped underwater rock formation becomes a temple, and the lack of other artifacts is simply proof of how thoroughly the cataclysm erased all traces. The conclusion is never in doubt, it is the starting point. The scientific method, by stark contrast, is a disciplined journey of uncertainty. a researcher starts not with a conviction but with a question. They form a hypothesis, a testable proposal, and then they actively try to tear it down. They design experiments, gather data, and submit their findings for others to critique and replicate. The goal is not to prove yourself right, but to find out what is actually true, even if that means your initial, beloved idea was completely wrong. This is why plate tectonics triumphed over the land bridge theory. It simply explained the evidence better. It was a hypothesis that withstood every attempt to break it. This process is slow, meticulous, and often unsatisfying for those seeking immediate, dramatic answers. It cannot offer the emotional payoff of a rediscovered golden age, but it is this very rigor, this willingness to be wrong, that has built our modern world from medicine to space exploration. It is a system built on collective skepticism, not on individual revelation. The allure of alternative history is powerful because it speaks to our imagination, but the power of science lies in its proven ability to separate what we wish were true from what the evidence insists actually is. Another line of supposed evidence for Lemuria weaves a tapestry from the threads of language itself. Proponents of the Lost Continent sometimes point to startling similarities between words in ancient Tamil, spoken in southern India, and languages like Mayan from Central America. They argue that such connections, spanning vast oceans, could only be explained by a shared origin on a sunken landmass that once bridged these cultures. A handful of words might sound alike, or concepts might seem to overlap, creating a tantalizing puzzle that feels too significant to be mere chance. This approach, however, confronts a fundamental reality of how languages actually work and evolve. Mainstream linguists and historians universally reject these connections, and their reasoning is not born of closed-mindedness, but of a deep understanding of linguistic patterns. The core issue is a lack of systematic, verifiable correspondence. For two languages to be proven as historically related, their connection must go far beyond a few words that sound similar. Researchers must demonstrate consistent, predictable sound shifts across the entire vocabulary and grammar. For example, if a certain sound in a parent language consistently becomes a different sound in its daughter languages, this pattern must hold true for hundreds of words, not just a handful. The supposed links between Tamil and Mayan fail this basic test spectacularly. They typically rely on a small, carefully selected list of words, often stripped of their original grammatical context and meaning. When you examine the full structures of these languages, their grammatical rules, their sentence construction, and their core vocabularies for body parts, numbers, and family relations, they share no such systematic relationship. The similarities that are highlighted are almost always coincidental, a product of the limited number of sounds the human voice can make. With thousands of languages in the world, some are bound to have words that sound alike by pure random chance. Think of it like this: if you shuffle two large decks of cards long enough, you will eventually find a few sequences where the cards match up perfectly. This does not mean the decks were originally stacked the same way. It is simply the law of probabilities playing out. Isolating a few matching cards while ignoring the thousands that do not match is not proof of a connection. It is a classic case of cherry-picking data. These linguistic claims also completely ignore the well-established, evidence-rich models of human migration. We know from genetics, archaeology, and linguistics itself that the Americas were populated by migrations from Siberia across the Bering Land Bridge tens of thousands of years ago. The ancestors of the Maya undertook an incredible journey over generations, completely separate from the populations of South Asia. To suggest a direct link via a Pacific continent is to dismiss this entire body of interdisciplinary science in favor of a few superficial word resemblances. The true story of human language is one of incredible diversity and branching family trees, not a single global culture fragmented by a cataclysm. The search for Lemuria in our words is a search for echoes, but the echoes we hear are often just the sound of our own hopes reflected back at us. The digital age has given the legend of Lemuria a new, almost limitless territory to conquer. Online, the sunken continent is no longer confined to dusty books or niche communities. It thrives in a vibrant ecosystem of websites, forums, and social media platforms where its story can evolve and spread at the speed of a click. This new environment is a perfect breeding ground for what we might call digital folklore. An individual might post a shaky, digitally enhanced sonar image of the seafloor, claiming it shows the clear grid of a submerged city. The post goes viral not because it is true, but because it feels true to those who already want to believe. In the comments, others share links to AI-generated art depicting gleaming Lemurian crystal pyramids, their flawless, fantastical details lending an illusion of authenticity. These synthetic images, created from the collective data of human imagination, become accepted as glimpses of a recovered past. The myth mutates with each share, each new layer of speculation, until the original scientific puzzle is completely buried under a mountain of digital invention. This process is accelerated by the very architecture of the internet itself. Search algorithms and social media feeds are designed to keep us engaged, and they do this by feeding us more of what we have already shown an interest in. If you watch one video about Lemuria, the platform will suggest 10 more. Each new video might be progressively more speculative, more certain, and less concerned with evidence than the last. You are gently guided down a rabbit hole where every click confirms your initial curiosity and isolates you from contradictory viewpoints. This creates a powerful echo chamber. Within these digital spaces, a community forms around the shared belief in Lemuria. Doubters are dismissed as closed-minded agents of the mainstream. Anecdotes are treated as data, and a compelling narrative outweighs 1,000 peer-reviewed papers. This is confirmation bias in its purest form, the natural human tendency to seek out and favor information that confirms what we already believe, amplified to an extreme by technology. The internet does not just host the myth of Lemuria, it actively reshapes and reinvents it, creating a feedback loop where belief is constantly reinforced. In this new world, critical thinking is not just an academic skill, it is a necessary tool for navigation. The most enduring lost continent may not be at the bottom of the ocean, but in the boundless, uncharted depths of our own digital creation. The scientific consensus on Lemuria is definitive and unanimous. Modern geology has completely closed the book on the possibility of a recently sunk continent in the Indian or Pacific Ocean. The theory of plate tectonics provides such a comprehensive and elegant explanation for our planet's geology and the distribution of its life that a landmass like Lemuria is simply not required. It is an answer to a question that science no longer asks. The Earth's crust is indeed dynamic and constantly changing. Continents do rift apart and fragments can be submerged, as the story of Mauritia shows. But the timescales and mechanisms involved are the very things that make the legend impossible. These are not events of sudden, catastrophic collapse, but processes of almost unimaginable slowness. The splitting of a supercontinent is a geological epic that unfolds over tens of millions of years. The drowning of a microcontinent is a gradual sinking, a relentless subsidence measured in millimeters per year. This is a world where a single mountain range can take 20 million years to rise. The Lemuria of legend, with its advanced civilization lost in a single, terrible day, exists on a human clock. The real Earth operates on a geological timepiece where the drama is so extended it becomes imperceptible. The evidence for this is written in the ocean floor, locked in the magnetism of ancient rocks, and encoded in the DNA of every living creature. The movement of continents explains why we find tropical plant fossils in Antarctica and matching rock layers on continents now separated by vast oceans. It explains the lemur fossil puzzle with a clarity that a sunken land bridge never could. The legend is a story, a powerful and enduring one, but it is a story that belongs to the realm of human culture and imagination, not to the factual history of our planet. Perhaps the most telling part of this story is not that the myth was debunked, but that it survived its own death. Lemuria endures because it serves a purpose far greater than mere geological fact. For many, it functions as a spiritual homeland, a place of origin that feels more profound and meaningful than the random chance of evolution. In a world increasingly defined by data and logic, Lemuria offers an alternative history of the soul, a narrative where humanity or its predecessors were once giants of spiritual power intimately connected to the cosmos. It provides a sense of lost grandeur, a fall from grace that is more emotionally resonant than our scientific understanding of slow biological and cultural development. This is not about evidence, it is about identity. It answers a deep human need to belong to something ancient and magnificent. For the Tamil people, the legend of Kumari Kandam is not a myth to be debunked, but a foundational pillar of cultural pride. It is a story of resilience, of a civilization that survived a catastrophic loss and carried its language and culture forward. This narrative provides a powerful sense of historical depth and autonomy, a testament to a rich heritage that predates many others. The sunken continent becomes a symbol of what was lost, fueling a continuous cultural revival and a fierce pride in a unique linguistic and historical identity. Here, the myth is not a rebellion against science, but a celebration of cultural continuity. For creators and storytellers, from comic book writers to game designers, Lemuria is a blank canvas of infinite possibility. It is a setting where anything can happen, where the rules of our world do not apply. It can be a kingdom of serpent people, a source of ancient magic, or the home of a forgotten super technology. Its very vagueness is its strength, allowing each generation to reinvent it for their own anxieties and aspirations. This constant reinvention in pop culture acts as a life support system, ensuring the name Lemuria is never forgotten, even if its original meaning is lost. Ultimately, the persistence of Lemuria is a quiet rebellion. It is a pushback against a universe that can sometimes feel disenchanted, fully mapped and explained. The myth defiantly insists that mystery is not dead, that there are still great secrets to be uncovered. It caters to our yearning for a world where the map still has blank spaces labeled "Here be dragons." This is why it will likely never fade away. As long as we have a need for wonder, for spiritual roots, and for stories that are larger than life, the lost continent of Lemuria will continue to rise from the depths of our imagination, generation after generation. The real treasure hidden within the Lemuria legend is not a sunken city, but a crucial lesson in navigating a world filled with extraordinary claims. This entire journey illustrates the vital distinction between a scientific hypothesis and an established theory. A hypothesis is a starting point. An educated guess like Philip Sclater's land bridge proposed to explain a specific puzzle. It is a question mark. A theory like plate tectonics is the answer that has survived relentless testing. It is a comprehensive framework supported by mountains of evidence from independent fields, capable of predicting phenomena and withstanding every attempt to prove it wrong. Understanding this difference is the first defense against being swept away by seductive stories that wear the clothes of science but lack its substance. This is where healthy skepticism becomes our most valuable tool. Skepticism is not cynicism. It is not a refusal to believe in anything wonderful. It is simply the practice of asking good questions. Where is the evidence? Can it be verified by others? Does it fit with what we already know to be true? When someone presents a mysterious artifact or a cryptic underwater shape, skepticism prompts us to seek context and peer review rather than accepting revelation at face value. It is the intellectual immune system that protects us from misinformation, allowing us to appreciate genuine mysteries without falling for fabricated ones. Embracing this mindset does not mean sacrificing wonder. On the contrary, it opens the door to the true marvels of our world, which are often more breathtaking than any fiction. The slow, billion-year dance of continents, the fact that we carry the DNA of ancient migrations in our cells, the intricate web of life shaped by evolution, these are stories of epic scale and profound beauty. Human history itself, pieced together from pottery shards, ancient DNA, and crumbling manuscripts, reveals a tapestry of ingenuity, resilience, and connection that is every bit as compelling as a lost civilization of giants. We do not need to invent golden ages when the real story of humanity spread across the globe is a saga of incredible adaptation and survival. Yet, to dismiss the human need for myth would be to ignore a fundamental part of ourselves. Legends like Lemuria endure because they speak to our deepest yearnings for meaning, for a grander past, and for mysteries that lie just beyond the edge of the map. They are the soul's poetry. The challenge, then, is to hold both truths in our hands at once. We can cultivate a rational mind grounded in evidence and critical thinking, while still making space for a heart that finds inspiration in the stories we tell about who we are and where we came from. We can explore the oceans with sonar and satellites, marveling at the real geology of Mauritia, while also appreciating the cultural power of Kumari Kandam. The ultimate lesson of Lemuria is that we do not have to choose between truth and wonder. The real world, understood deeply, provides all the wonder we could ever need, and the myths we create remind us of the timeless human spirit that strives to find it. Our voyage began with a scientific puzzle and a land bridge for lemurs, a rational hypothesis for its time. It then sailed into the mystic currents of Theosophy, where Blavatsky transformed that land bridge into a continent of psychic giants. From there, it was swept into James Churchward's wild tales of a Pacific paradise called Mu, a complete history conjured from invisible tablets. Each reinvention pulled the legend further from its geological roots, feeding a hunger for hidden histories and spiritual homelands. Modern science, with the revolutionary framework of plate tectonics, has provided the definitive answer. The continents move, but they do not vanish in a day. The Earth's story is one of slow, majestic drift, not sudden, civilization-ending catastrophes. As a physical place, a continent that recently sank beneath the waves, Lemuria is unequivocally a fiction. Yet to dismiss it entirely is to miss its profound and lasting power. Lemuria's true home was never on the ocean floor, but in the human heart. It lives on as Kumari Kandam, a foundational myth of cultural identity and resilience. It thrives in the pages of comics and the lore of video games as a shorthand for ancient mystery. It endures because it answers a deep, abiding need for wonder, for a sense that our world holds grander secrets than our history books contain. We are drawn to these lost horizons, these blank spaces on the map where our imagination can build palaces of what might have been. The story of Lemuria is ultimately a story about us, about our endless desire to find meaning in the past and mystery in the depth. What legendary lands capture your imagination? Share your own tales of forgotten worlds in the comments below.